Southport is a small town in North Carolina with a population of just 600 or so people. It's a quiet place. The kind of place where everybody knows each other and nothing ever happens. But that all changed one day in 2024, when 4 people were brutally stabbed to death inside a home in town, and a 5th person was also injured. Here's what we know about this terrible crime. It was a Wednesday afternoon in January 2024. Emergency services received a call from someone who was reporting an assault at a home on Long Beach Road in Southport. When officers arrived at the scene, they found 5 people who had been stabbed multiple times. The victims were identified as 69-year-old Thomas Wade, his wife 68-year-old Laura Ann Wade, their daughter 42-year-old Elizabeth Poston, and her boyfriend 34-year-old Timothy McGrail. Another victim was identified as 39-year-old Justin Anderson, who was the son of Laura's sister. Justin had been visiting his aunt and uncle for the holidays, and he ended up staying longer than expected. Sadly, all 4 Wades died at the scene, while Anderson was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. But he sadly passed away from his injuries shortly after arriving at the medical center. The Brunswick County Sheriff S.A.'s office has not officially released any information regarding a potential motive for the stabbings, and they are still searching for whoever was responsible for the crime. But here's what we know so far. After the police arrived at the crime scene, they noticed that the front door of the house had been kicked in. But when they entered the house, they noticed that nothing appeared to be stolen. TVs, jewelry, and other valuables were left behind. This led the sheriff's office to believe that robbery was not the motive for the crime. And because the family had been well liked in the community, and there were no signs of forced entry anywhere else around the house, investigators believed that the killer or killers knew the family and were invited into the home voluntarily. A close friend of the family told reporters that Thomas and Laura had recently had an argument with their daughter, Elizabeth, over plans to sell their house and move to a retirement community. Apparently, Elizabeth wanted to buy the home from them, but she didn't agree with the price her parents had set. So perhaps this disagreement could have played some role in the stabbings. But again, the police have not confirmed this or any other motive yet. Another detail that might help solve this case is that the victims had recently had an unexpected visitor. On December, a woman called the police claiming that she had received an email from her daughter Elizabeth saying that she needed help, and she hadn't heard from her in a long time. Deputies went to the home to do a wellness check, but everything seemed fine, and Elizabeth did not want any assistance. The officers left, and that was the last time anyone saw Elizabeth alive. So it's possible that the killer or killers had already arrived at the home by the time the police had left. But this is just speculation. The victims had also recently posted on social media about receiving strange phone calls. So it's possible that whoever was calling them decided to pay them a visit. But once again, this is just speculation on my part. The truth is, we don't know anything for sure, except that the killer or killers knew. The family and they were invited into the home willingly. Investigators are currently following up on several leads, and they believe that there are people out there who know what happened to the family, but they are afraid to come forward. That's understandable, because when you have someone willing to commit such a horrific crime, you can bet they're not afraid to do other terrible things in order to protect themselves. At a press conference held on January, Sheriff John Ingram said, "We need the public's help to solve this case. Someone out there knows something about what happened here, and we need that person to come forward. No piece of information is too small. It may be the one piece we are looking for." He went on to say that this was a very brutal crime, and his officers were still trying to process everything. An autopsy report revealed that all of the victims had suffered multiple sharp force injuries, meaning they had been stabbed more than once. But authorities have not said whether or not they believe that more than one person was responsible for the killings. According to the sheriff, none of the weapons used in the crime have been recovered, but they don't believe that a gun was used. Here in the United States, it's not uncommon to hear about mass shootings, but it is rare that we hear about cases where multiple people are killed by stabbing. In fact, since records were kept, there have only been 17 mass stabbings in the US with 227 victims. So cases like this one are extremely rare. In most cases like this, the perpetrator is known to at least some of the victims, which makes it even more shocking that this could happen in a quiet little town like Southport. Thomas Wade had worked as a contractor and had apparently served in the U.S. Marine Corps at some point in his life. His wife Laura was a retired teacher who had worked for the Brunswick County School District for many years. The couple had 2 daughters together named Elizabeth and another daughter named Rebecca Poston, who lives in Arizona. The Wades had moved to Southport back in 2001, and they quickly became beloved members of the community. "I don't understand why anyone would want to hurt them," neighbor Russell Newton told reporters. "They were good people. They were nice. They were kind. If you asked them to help you, they would drop everything. I've lived here 20 years and never seen anything like this happen." So let us take a moment to remember these victims, and let us hope that the person or persons responsible for taking their lives are brought to justice. As I mentioned earlier, Elizabeth had been living with her boyfriend Timothy McGrail in Virginia Beach, not too far from where I live. Timothy was a Navy veteran who served multiple tours overseas, according to his LinkedIn page. He worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs and specialized in helping other veterans find employment after they left the service. Timothy had also recently started working for a moving company. Perhaps he and Elizabeth had used this job to get inside the home and lure the other victims outside before attacking them. Again, just speculation. But what about Justin? He had traveled from South Carolina to spend the holidays with his aunt and uncle. Why would the killer or killers let him live long enough to travel all that way just to end his life a few days later? What could have caused such a brutal crime? Maybe drugs, or maybe mental illness. Who knows? All I know is that I'm glad I don't live in that area. When something like this happens, it affects the whole community. People are afraid to go outside. They wonder if the killer is still out there, and they worry that they might be next. This is especially true if the police don't catch the killer right away. But eventually those fears subside, and life goes back to normal. This is not the first time that a family has been targeted in their own home, and it probably won't be the last. So make sure you take steps to protect yourself and your loved ones. Make sure you have a home security system. Keep your doors locked and your windows closed. Don't open your door to strangers. Simple things like that could save your life one day. The police are asking anyone with information in this case to come forward. They have set up a tip line where people can leave anonymous tips. If you have watched this far, please leave a comment below to let me know what you think happened in this case. I'll be reading through them and responding to as many as I can. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Have a safe and wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.